All right, what's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon, Kindle, and CreateSpace. A link will be in the description box below as usual. This topic is free speech versus hate speech. Now, it seems like we're supposed to have free speech in this country, but that's not really true. And it seems like people have a problem with hate speech in this country. And that's not really true either. It's not that those are not absolutes, right? Which nothing is. So what I would say is, in free speech, there's certain things you can say and there's certain things you can't say without a backlash. When people want to blame this on, like, maybe more of a soft or liberal society, or call it like social justice warriors, and in some ways like conservatives can handle more harder speech, when truth be told, to me, it looks like everybody's just triggered. And there's a difference between free speech and hate speech. And a lot of times people call free speech hate speech because they hate what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? And it's not what you're saying isn't true or isn't relevant, or or that it doesn't make a point. It's that they don't want to hear that. And that goes for liberals and conservatives, just like hate speech, hate speech should be something blatant. But nowadays people look at hate speech as something that can be considered free speech because it's coded. You know what I'm saying? We know what you're really trying to say. So even people who are just speaking their mind from their perspective, whether I agree or disagree, some of those people aren't really talking hate speech. They're just talking from free speech, but you hating what they say too. You know what I'm saying? Now, the irony of that is this, to me. When you're talking about free speech, the free speech is one of those things where depends on what we talking about and who talking about it. Because if you like the person, they can speak as freely as they want to about whatever topic that they want to, and it's all good, right? If you don't like the person, everything they say is constructed and broken down and put under a microscope to be to be given every angle possible, so you can prove that there's some evil person that you don't like. What I mean by that is this. I use it this way. There are conservatives that people feel like they're racist because they're conservatives. And they make points. But you don't want to hear what they got to say, because you look at what they're saying as hate speech. Because it's coming from a conservative, and you would assume a conservative is racist. Which there are conservatives who are racist. And then there are conservatives who just, those are their belief systems, and that's their principle. You get what I'm saying? So it's different. It could be the same type of rhetoric in the same ideology of conservatism, but coming from two different types of people. Sometimes you got to look at the people. You get what I'm saying? And their history. So I get the blanket, like, oh, it's coming from them, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, because there's an overwhelming amount of, there are too many racist people who have racist ideologies that hide behind conservatism or this or that. I get it. Liberals do the same thing. You get what I'm saying? You could use it, you can go on that other end where liberals use labels like, oh, you won't pay attention to what I'm saying, or you don't respect what I'm saying because you're racist, or you're sexist, or you're you hate gays or you're anti-Semitic, stuff like that, right? And anything to be dismissive of another person's opinion. So that's a problem, right? Now, the other thing about that is the free speech versus hate speech is these false equivalents, because, how can I say this? It's kind of like the idea where people try to say that the Ku Klux Klan and the Black Panthers are, essentially the same type of organizations. And it's like, okay, the Ku Klux Klan and people who believe in that ideology killed kids. The Black Panthers gave kids breakfast and vaccinations to be healthy and to be good students. They're two completely different things. The Ku Klux Klan's practices were not adopted by the government. You don't see burning crosses in people's yards, burning people's homes, and raping people's wife and kids and killing people and blowing up churches. It's not really government can't really condone that, but you do see them with Head Start programs and vaccinations and lunch programs and breakfast programs. You do see that. So that's two completely different things. But, free speech versus hate speech, right? And I say free speech versus hate speech in that way because it's expression. You know what I mean? The same thing with how using the N-word, right? It makes it a problem because if we say it, it's free speech. If nobody who's not black says it, it's hate speech, which makes sense. But then again, it doesn't make sense because you're saying hateful, because we can say something hateful to each other out of love, but if somebody else says that something hateful towards us, it's out of hate. And that's where you get all this stuff, because there are people who just want to call you that or say that to you on the low to make you comfortable who are non-black, which is a problem. But we say it too much to each other, which is also a problem. I could say it, but you can't. You get what I'm saying? And then it's a whole other argument. Well, I want to say it too. Why do you want to say it? Free speech versus hate speech, right? Same thing with even as a content creator on YouTube, right? There are creators who can say a lot of things because they're popular or because YouTube pushes them, or they can get away with more about the things they say and do, right? But there are people, who aren't popular, who can't say much of anything, and they're going to get flagged or demonetized, on title, on subject matter, or on, they won't get pushed because, their free speech is going to be deemed hate speech. It is what it is. Another thing is agendas. Like, how can I say? The gay agenda can be pushed through free speech. And you can keep the gay agenda going because if you oppose it, it's basically considered hate speech, right? Same thing with, I would say the Jewish agenda. Jewish people can say what they want, to do what they want, and speak their mind, and that's free speech. If somebody is critical of Jewish behaviors, you're anti-Semitic, that's hate speech, right? For my people, it's not that it's not like that. Like, it's like ours are inverted. Like, we say something, it's viewed as hate speech. You know what I mean? So our free speech is viewed as hate speech when we say something because it's normally speaking out about some type of oppression from a non-black group, right? Or American oppression. So, automatically the wall goes up with people, and that's hate speech. Thus, you shouldn't kneel for the anthem type stuff. You shouldn't be critical of America type stuff, and then people turn right around and they're critical of America. Like, when I express my free speech, it's hateful. When you express your free speech, your speech. Well, on the flip side, what I mean by that is, when other people express themselves, it's not hate speech. Like when the former president was in office, it wasn't hate speech that people said they wanted to kill him on national TV. That wasn't hate speech, right? They're calling them monkeys and his wife a tranny and all that. That wasn't hate speech, right? Him being called, the N-word, it wasn't hate speech, because all these people had all of these reasons. And when people do that now online, it's not considered hate speech. It's just free speech, free expression. Times have changed. Stop being so politically. We don't have to be politically correct. And I don't have a problem with being, quote unquote, politically incorrect. What I have a problem with is just in general, and this goes for both sides. If it's fair, if it's fair for one, it's fair for all. If it's unfair for one, it's unfair for all. So if you want to get dirty in the mud with somebody, you can't get mad when they get dirty in the mud back. And that's my issue with free speech versus hate speech, because it's like somebody wants you wants the freedom of speaking their mind, but it's only for them. You get what I'm saying? But when you speak your mind, it's offensive. You can't be offensive with your freedom of speech and then be offended by somebody else's freedom of speech and call it hate speech. Same, and the people who really operate in hate speech. You can't be operating in hate speech and then be a victim when somebody speaks back hatefully to you. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But that was just this topic. We out.